I had a customer that wanted me to take this plaque and this gavel and turn it into kind of a keepsake box. So I didn't show you, I got all these boards here dimensioned to the same thickness and width using normal joiner planer techniques. Now I'm just cutting the 45-degree miters on all four pieces, cutting them to length, kind of getting a rough box right here. And then that lid, I'm going to try to have it insert. So that just cut that off with that plaque. Now I'm going to adjust the table saw, lower it down. So I'm just going to take a little bit to make a rabbet there. Adjust the fence. And this is going to be so that that plaque can go in. So I'm just, instead of getting a dado blade out for just a few pieces, it was just easier just to run it across several times. Here I'm making the bottom out of a short piece of plywood, and then I'm cutting a slot just for that piece of plywood to fit in. Cut all the pieces, and then need to cut it just a little bit thicker. So cut all the pieces first, then adjust your fence until you have your bottom piece of plywood there fit. That works pretty good. And then you can run all of them through. You can see that rabbet on that piece there to the left. That's what that top's going to fit in. There's the plaque fitting in the top. That's just a rough thing there. We'll have to finish it up. And whenever you're gluing up boxes, I find it pretty easy to put tape. Just put this down on the table and then put tape on the bottom of each piece. And then that allows you to put these in and kind of makes it much easier for a glue up and for dry fitting. I'm sure there's other techniques. This is a technique I'm sure I saw from someone in a magazine years ago. It seems to work pretty good. Then you just put your bottom in there, and I'm just kind of folding this up. The tape will hold it in place. And it gives you enough. The tape allows you to make some minor adjustments if you need to. So that's just kind of a rough fit here. Now I'm going to apply the glue. Of course, I'm doing this whole video in, 2 or 3 times speed, so you don't have to get bored watching me put glue down. To spread glue, I just end up getting a bunch of popsicle sticks. You can get a big pack of them for a couple dollars on Amazon or Walmart or something. So that works pretty good. Now, I got this glued up. I'm going to tape this just to hold it in place temporarily here. So line it up, put a little tape on it. And then I'm going to use, instead of clamps, I've got some box clamps and I've tried clamping. The easiest thing for these boxes to me is to use packing tape. And so you'll see me do that here in a second. And that lid needs slightly cut. I'll cut that here in a minute on table saw. Just needs a hair more cut off of it. So make sure you get your glue out before it dries. And then you're going to see me wrap this with the packing tape. So just get it started, and then you can start applying pressure after you get one piece around. So now I've got it around. Now I can really, the more wraps you put, the more pressure it's going to put on it. And this just kind of cinches everything up. This works really good. Works better than a clamp in my mind. So we'll let that dry. Now we're going to come back, and I'm going to mark where that right there, I'm marking where I want the lid. So that's going to be the top and the bottom. That's where I'm going to cut that. And now I'm going to mark where I want the splines. We're going to use some walnut splines, so there'll be make this look a little more interesting, a little more attractive, I think. Also, this will add some strength to the box. So I'm kind of trying to figure out here how far apart I want them. And this is really up to your aesthetic opinion, really, whatever you want it to look like. So I kind of eyeballed it, played with it a little bit, forget what I come up with. Now, here I'm measuring how thick I can raise the blade so that it doesn't cut all the way through when I cut the splines. And then I've got this little box jig. Allows me to adjust this to fit the measurements that I put on the box, and allows it to be very repeatable. So we'll put that in there and raise this blade up to match that measurement. That didn't work too good to see, so I think I'll turn this around. There you go. So I want to match that measurement. So that's what I measured when I measured the corner of that box. It was to make sure that I didn't cut all the way through the wood. You don't want the spline to show up on the inside of your box. So now I just simply turn the saw on, and we're going to go cut all 4 corners. So this, you can see how this jig here really makes doing this easy. And then it's the same on both sides. I didn't have to adjust anything. And then once I get all 4 of these, I will adjust this box. As you can see, I adjusted it. It's got a little wing nut there, so you can adjust the fence to get these splines exactly where you want them. Really, if you're going to make these boxes, making a jig, a spline cutting jig like this is well worth the time and effort to do. If you want to see more details on that, I could do a short little video showing that. Then I've got a thickness sander, so I used a thickness sander to get this walnut exactly the thickness of what my saw blade width is. So that's what I'm going to use for the splines, and there I'm just marking how much I need, and I'm going to cut this. I found this the easiest way. Just cut a chunk off, then I just used a little blade there to cut it into a square. Don't worry to try to make it angled or anything. I just cut them into squares, and those fit right in. So I just repeat that process several times until you get all of the splines filled here, and then we'll apply some glue, and we will go ahead and glue those in there. Let those dry, and be ready to cut them off and sand them. I think I'm going to show you that here in just a second. Thanks again for watching. If there's anything you would like to see content-wise, always just let me know. I have been starting to do some more wood turning here as the holidays are coming up. So I might do a couple videos there, especially if I find something new and interesting. I need to start watching some YouTube myself, see if there's any new cool projects that someone's come up with. I get a lot of ideas off of other people, and then just kind of put my own signature or my own style on ideas that I've copied from other people. So I think we're all one big team trying to just make some cool things. So this is a little tedious, takes a little while. Hopefully everyone's glad that the election ads are over. Now I'm doing this video, the election's over, so hopefully those ads will stop. Here I got this cheap little saw I got years ago. It's like a little flimsy flush cut saw. It works pretty good. So just cut these off. You don't have to be perfect, but you can get pretty close. Just cut these off flush, and then you can use a hand plane, or you could just sand these. So I'm going to go with the palm sander option. So just cut these off flush, and then there's really not that much material to sand. So the sanding option works pretty good. Like I said, you could also use a hand plane, especially if you're really good with a hand plane. We're having a really nice warm fall here in Southern Ohio, so I've still been getting out. Dumb me, I just took up the hobby of golf again. I went about 20 years without playing golf, and met a couple people, and they got me back into golfing. So I'm out chasing that ball to the left and right and everywhere in between. So keeping me out of the wood shop a little bit. Here I'm just sanding this with this palm sander. Now I have to trim up this top. Just the way this project was, I'm going to take this the top of that box, and I'm going to make some walnut, like a trim pieces. And I'm just going to use my hand miter box thing here that I made years ago. Just kind of mark the length that I want. And then I'm going to cut those using those pre-drawn 45s or pre-cut 45s through that 2x4. This works pretty good. You could do this with power tools, with a miter box, I guess, but this is all here at the workbench. I find this quieter. I find it a little more relaxing, and it's really not hard work, even if it does take me just a second to get it all done. Sometimes for me, if it's just quieter, I enjoy it more, even if it takes twice as long. You do what you want on that. The power tools and the hand tools, I find it's a balance of what I enjoy sometimes. So I definitely am not interested in getting one of those foot pedal lathes and trying to wear myself out using that, even though it would be cool to use one of those old foot pedal rope style lathes. I don't know if you guys have seen those before, but a twisted rope type thing. It's pretty cool. I don't even know what they're called. Here I put some wax paper down so that the glue wouldn't stick to anything. And now I'm just going to use a couple clamps here and just put very little pressure and square that up. And then I sanded it after it dried on my thickness sander and then glued it on there. And now I'm just going to round the corners off with a little palm hand plane just to take the sharp edges off. And you can see how that framed that plaque pretty nicely. So this is kind of a weird project, but I think it's turning out pretty good. So you get this done, and then all we got to do is cut the lid off. I think that's the next step. When you go to cut the lid off here, you want to make sure the blade is not cutting all the way through the box. So you want to leave about a 16th or 32nd at least of wood when you cut through here. Now here, I had to stop because I didn't take out the riving knife. And the riving knife wasn't letting the box go through. So you have to take that riving knife out there if you're not doing a complete cut through. So here you go. Take the riving knife out. Now I'm going to cut all the way right through. There's a little bit of wood left, so you do not cut all the way through this box. So leave about a 16th or so of wood. And then go all the way around. And now we're going to go grab a handsaw. And we're going to cut through the rest of the way with a handsaw. You can use about any saw here that you want, just as long as you cut through. There's not a whole lot of material here. There you go. So now we got the lid. And then simply just had to, take a hand plane and true that up, because that saw cut wasn't the greatest thing. And just true it up. You could sand it with a palm sander. And now I'm just using some chisels here to cut out for the hinges. You wouldn't have to put hinges. Sometimes I like boxes that don't have hinges, that just kind of slide over, have a lid that sits over on top. There's a lot of different designs for how you do your lids depending on what you're doing. I make a lot of recipe boxes, and I do not do hinges with the recipe boxes, but this customer preferred that I put some hinges on here, so that's what I did. I'm going to show you a ton of this. Just gets a little boring. I sped that up there, and then I installed those hinges. And there's the gavel in the box. Going to put a couple coats of spray lacquer on it, and it will be finished. And there's the final project. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something.